Welcome everybody to SEO Office Hours. My name's Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals, and part of what we do along with special guests are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've got a bunch of questions already that have been submitted through the site. But if anybody on the chat would like to jump in and ask questions, feel free to just flag yourself in the chat functionality. Joe will be monitoring. Also, any other perspectives, please feel free to share. I think that's one of the best things that we found about doing this so far is actually there's no one answer to things. And with lots of people sharing, it's been really, really helpful. Like every week, with me today is Joe Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Hey, Joe.
Hello, Mike. Hello. Thank you for hosting us today. We have our Christmas special. I hope everyone's got their Christmas jumpers here today. Tom is a reindeer as his great Christmas jumper. A big welcome to Rob, Sandeep, Bashirat, Robin, John, Isaac, and Serena, and everyone else that's joining later on when we have it live on YouTube. So this is the SEO Office Hours Christmas special. As Mike said, he is SEO at Good Signals, but he's the CEO. He's underrated himself. He's the CEO of Good Signals, and we've known each other for some time. I work for myself. I have my own consultancy, Turn Global. It's a remote digital consulting company in Barcelona. And today we have two great guests, Tom and Azeem. So for those that don't know Azeem actually has a top-rated podcast. He's been hosting that the Azeem Digital Asks for quite some time. It's called the All Round Digital Marketing Podcast. And he's also a well-renowned speaker. I saw him at quite a few events, including International Search Summit, where he won Best Speaker of the Day. And also, he is speaking at MozCon next year. So Azeem actually pitched to speak at MozCon this past year, and he was successful. So the point is, if you have a great topic that you want to share, please do pitch it to conferences. They want to hear about you. And also on the show today, we have Tom Anthony. He's actually dressed as a reindeer today, but normally he doesn't have his reindeer outfit on. And he's actually the CTO of Search Pilot. Previous to that, he's been working at Distilled. He was the VP of product at Distilled. And I've seen him at many conferences, including the Search Love conference that Distilled used to run, as well as Barton SEO. Excellent speaker, and he'll be sharing some very actionable tips for the questions today. As Mike mentioned, if you do have any questions today and you want to hear from the speakers, please write in the chat. We are an interactive SEO office hours, and we're here to answer your questions. I will ask the questions to our guest today. And without further ado, I'm going to pass back to Michael Chidsey.
Great. Let's get straight to it. So we've got these two questions here. I'm going to put them together because they're kind of similar. And we'll see what the answers are. And as I said, if anybody else wants to chip in, feel free to. Okay, so where do you get your SEO news from? How do you keep on top of trends? And the other question is, what areas of SEO do you think are important to focus on in 2024? So I thought I'd group those two together. Azeem, are you happy to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm glad you chose me because I think the first thing that people will say will be the Aleda's SEO FOMO newsletter. I think it's a fantastic source of information and definitely one to look out for when it pops into your inbox every week because there might be very well something in there that you've missed. Other than that, the popular search engine publications online, like Search Engine Journal or what Barry Schwartz is publishing, but I'm not going to say everything so that I don't give Tom anything left to say. And ultimately, I would just also like to add that a lot of social media in terms of following the right sort of people, right being subjective, follow people who are generally considered to be thought leaders in the industry, but I actively like to follow and read people's inputs who have a different way of thinking to me, because I think it's quite important to challenge your own ways of thinking. And I'm a very big believer that there's more than one way to achieve the same goal. So mutual agreement on how to do things sometimes only gets you so far. So That's pretty much me in a nutshell. Thank you for having me too. I should have started by that. Sorry.
So does that explain why you've got, if you have loads of conversations with like black hat SEOs, you don't agree with them? I'm joking.
No comment.
Um, Tom, are you happy to kick off?
Yeah, so yeah, likewise, thanks for having me. I'm going to start with that, Azeem. So I mean, SEO FOMO is the obvious sort of thing in terms of newsletters, and then just doubling down on what Azeem said around following the right people on social media. One thing I didn't do for a long time, but it's something that's really helpful on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, it's Twitter. On Twitter, is create lists of people by different groups. So I have a list for like close follow and SEO because the algorithm isn't necessarily great. And so it's really easy to miss really interesting stuff if you're not grouping stuff there. Then I would be remiss if I didn't mention Search Pilot has a newsletter where we send out case studies for SEO A/B tests that we've been doing. Been doing that for quite a while. There's some really interesting case studies in that. And then I think the second part of the question was around what do we want to focus on in 2024? And there's a lot. I think we could spend the whole hour talking about that. But if I had to pick just one thing, what I spoke about MozCon, what I spoke about at SMX Advanced in Berlin, basically the ChatGPT type things of the world are really important for search, not for necessarily the reasons everybody thinks, but the GPT part of that is basically this engine that understands context. Why is this thing related to that thing, etc. And I think that Google are already definitely working on this, but I think over the next year, we're going to see them layering on more of that sort of technology where we're going to see search results based on a much deeper understanding of context than we ever had before. I think I've got a video online. I'll send you the link afterwards to send out where I've got to talk about that. So
Perfect. And Joe?
Yeah, I wanted to actually say about learningseo.io. That's actually set up by Aleda Solis because it's not just keeping up with the news, but it's then how can you focus on learning. That's really good. And then the other area I wanted to say and how to keep up with the news and also what's happening in 2024 is make the most of the communities that you have. So I'm part of Women in Tech SEO. It's great. I'm part of the Digital Marketing Union, which is for freelancers. There's a lot of different Slack channels or communities that you can be part of, and especially for those that are working, either you're in-house solo or you're a director in agency and you feel you can't ask other people, these communities, and especially if you're freelancer, these are some of the best ways to keep up with the latest news and also to learn from others.
Great. And any trends?
The trends, I I don't have an answer to that one right now, but for me, I think that there's a lot happening within search, and it's really important for you to focus on an area that you want to know more of in 2020. So for me, ChatGPT is something that I haven't really gone into yet, and it's something that is an area that I really want to look into in a bit more before actually implementing it in my search work.
And I think conferences as well. I think that's probably where I learn loads because you're disconnected from everything, and then just for even if sometimes the talks aren't totally relevant, I think having that thinking time to just think about different subjects really good. Obviously, you've got all the stuff that Google produce as well, so the Off the Record podcast and their version of Office Hours, which was the original version, but they've got one that isn't live now, and that's usually really good. And podcasts in general, actually, there's just so many amazing SEO ones. I walk my dog a lot, so I tend to stick my headphones in and do that. Great. Okay, next one. Oh, I think has anybody mentioned anything in the chat to do with trends?
Oh, I was looking. Sorry, I've lost my chat.
While Joe looks, if you don't mind me adding the point about conferences, yeah.
No, not yet.
I would always say whether it's in person or virtual, try and seek out a talk or a topic that's probably not to do with your general day-to-day work, or it's not an area that you're very confident in. I'm not ashamed to admit that prior to seeing Tom's talk at MozCon, I didn't know a whole lot about the area that he spoke about, but I remember just sitting there, and I think for most of the duration of the talk, I think my mouth was on the floor because a lot of this stuff would have completely passed me by, but he explained it in such a wonderful way, and I genuinely recommend checking it out because that's one that I've been back to a few times since, so it's definitely worth checking out for sure.
Thank you. And actually, Tom's shared it in the chat. We don't have any questions so far, though. No.
Okay, cool. I thought Robin said something actually just about focusing on,
Oh,
that was somewhere about just making your content as helpful as possible. That should be the top priority, which, yeah.
sorry, I
No,
didn't drink
that's
my
okay.
coffee yet today.
Okay, next question. Organic traffic is important to the company I work for. However, SEO is not taken seriously or given any attention. In fact, we only get notice when something goes wrong. For example, traffic drops 1 month. Any ideas on how to handle this? There are two of us. Tom, are you okay to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The first thing that jumps to mind here for me is around getting some attribution for the positive work you've done. And that can be really difficult to do in SEO. But one of the things I noticed when I was at Distilled, where we did a lot of consulting with varied customers, is you had a sort of CRO team, user team, who would always come to the sort of C-suite, the management team, with case studies of we did this, we did that, and here's the uptick, and this is the impact on revenue. And then typically what happened with the SEO team is that, oh, we've done all of these activities, but there was never much in the way of attribution of what was the possible impact of that, which is very difficult to measure, which was one of the motivations for us starting Search Pilot. But I think it's very possible for SEOs, without doing testing, to not only report the activities they've done, but the possible outcomes of those activities. We think this has had this sort of impact. If you can relate that to the impact on the conversion traffic in your funnel, so that you can actually say, we did these things, and you can give a range, but you can give a range of revenue. We think we had a revenue impact between this and this on the company. And then suddenly it's much easier for managers who don't understand necessarily what you're doing with SEO to understand what the impact of your work was.
Great. Azeem, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in a very similar situation in the past, and in my opinion, the problem is sort of twofold. I think a lot of SEO activities don't always bring about something tangible immediately, which is hard then to demonstrate the value of. So that's the first part of it, in my opinion. The second part of it is that the language used from SEO A to SEO B in terms of people should be inherently different that SEO A should be using to their manager or somebody in the boardroom. I've said at MilesCon and almost every conference that I've been to, for example, the boardroom or senior managers don't care about things like CTR. So you've got to try and change the way that you speak from an SEO to an SEO and senior management. And in terms of proving the value or only getting noticed when things go wrong, again, speaking purely from my own experience, a lot of people in senior management roles like a CMO or a CFO are very much, if you imagine them as attribution models, they're very much stuck in that last click world. They believe somebody sees a Google ad, clicks it, and then buys it. Whether that is for some socks or a £60,000 car, they still believe that it just happens immediately like that. So one of the things I always advise people to do while it's still available, look at your old analytics in terms of universal analytics, go to your multi-channel funnels and show them the purchase path at the very bottom. So not the obvious one at the top where it might be something like organic search or direct, which is number one. Start from the bottom up and look at the longest purchase path and then say to the person in charge, the senior, whoever, say, these are all the touch points that people have to go through before they buy our product or service or give us their information. It doesn't just happen overnight. The work that I have done in terms of SEO work fits into this part of the purchase journey. And if I were to remove that, how confident would you be that the rest of it will continue? And a lot of that conversation will help you frame the value of SEO and the work that you're doing. So that's the camp that I'm in, pretty much.
Amazing.
just
Thank you.
to jump in and play off of that, I think there definitely is that people say about the CIA, the CIA are succeeding when nobody's talking about them. And there definitely can be an aspect of that, I think, with SEO. It's easy to say, oh, like we're dropped out of the rankings suddenly and now everything's on fire, we're angry with the SEO people. But it's hard to
Yeah.
appreciate all the work they're doing, keeping you there in the first place. And then
Yeah.
final point quickly on that attribution was just to say that you don't need to use a tool like Search Pilot, which does A/B testing, which is the gold standard. You can do before and after testing with SEO. There are ways to go and try to get attribution for that work that you're doing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it was quite nice what you said, Tom, about the CIA, and emphasize also what you said, Azeem. I would suggest that you are your biggest advocate within your company about SEO, especially if you're the leader of that company, and especially if you're the only person doing SEO. Show all the great work that you're doing, because people will, then you're at the forefront of other people's minds. I've been in situations, yes, where we've only been looked at when something's gone wrong. So you're then on the back foot, and then you have to try and justify. But if you are always advocating about SEO, you're talking about what's happening in the search, in any Google updates, you're giving people more information, and then they feel comforted about it, especially with SEO. Some people are not understanding it. So in one of my companies I worked at, I actually created a newsletter, and we did that every month about what work we've done, what the results were, and also what's happened in Google and Bing or Yahoo in those days, and what was our response to it. So it's really about being your biggest advocate, sharing the great wins, and then when there is something that happens and oh yeah, we're dropped out of the rankings, then people are like, oh, actually, it's more of a, you're not in as much of a defensive position.
Great. Yeah. I was in house for 11 years, and I've obviously got quite a big mouth because I wouldn't stop talking about all the cool things we were doing. And I think when I think of SEO, I think of it as basically just trying to make your business and website better. And that range from things like creating new products or creating new content or doing PR campaigns. And I was really excited about the stuff we were doing, and therefore would be telling everybody about it and trying to get them behind it. So I think a lot of it is being a bit of personal PR or branding with inside the business, where you become your own champion, but also you mentioned the other person that you're working with. And the other thing that I think is quite good is just always trying to explain why to people, because although we all work in SEO and we understand exactly why we're creating pieces of content, for example, on a particular subject, they might not quite understand. So just helping them with that. And actually, I remember back then because we were working with Distilled like 12, 13 years ago. That's how I know Tom so well. And Will Critchlow came in and actually just gave a really lovely overview to the business about just helping them understand about marketing and SEO and so on, and everybody got really excited about it. I think that sort of stuff's really helped me. I think we got some questions in the chat.
Yeah, it was just we were just discussing around keyword and keyword stuffing. So just writing how, if there is a type of a keyword density or keyword stuffing, and if I should put 1 or 2 keywords per 100 words, is that keyword stuffing? And it was just really about writing for the user, writing semantic keywords, making sure that you're writing not for a bot, but writing actually for those people coming to visit your site. If you have a page, let's say chocolate chip cookies, and you're writing about different chocolate chip cookies, you should obviously include that within the page. But in the olden days, people would maybe put, I would say, 20 or 30 different terms for chocolate chip cookies, and obviously that is keyword stuffing.
Okay, so it sounds like it's being answered.
Just to jump in on that quickly.
Yeah, please do.
It's dangerous territory talking about keyword density, isn't it? But I think to the point of you should put the word cookie on the page if you're talking about cookies. Obviously, like the age-old answer, you should be writing content for humans and for your users as well. But I do think there's an edge case of, and this relates to what I was talking about, GPT technology. In the future, in the next couple of years, I think it's going to be less important to try to include every variation of the keywords that you're talking about on a page, because Google et al. Are going to be able to understand, okay, you're talking about cookies, but in Britain, someone might use the word biscuit as well, or whatever. They're going to understand all this context. You're not going to need to cater to trying to stuff every variation and synonym into these pages. It's the age-old answer of writing for humans, but with GPT technology, you can really see that we have got to that point. You can take a block of content and you can ask GPT, can you draw any conclusions about what other topics might be related to this content? And it will do a great job of that. And Google are going to be doing that behind the scenes as well. So far less important to focus on density or anything like that than ever before. So.
Cool, amazing. Okay, so if I'm honest, I'm a little bit nervous about reading this question, but but I'm just going to go for it. Okay, so how accurate are spam scores, and at what percentage should links be added to the disavow file? You can probably tell I'm a bit nervous on that one. Let's start with Azeem. Are you happy to start, or Tom?
I'm interested to hear from Tom first.
Okay, go for it, Tom.
I'm absolutely not going to answer this question. Not only because I just don't think there is a right answer, but also for myself, I haven't had any direct involvement with disavow for a few years now, just through the nature of the work I do. But once again, I think looking for answer that fits every case here is absolutely not the right approach to be taking. I think you need to look whether it sounds obvious, it sounds like I'm playing to the crowd, but like you need to take a holistic view of what the link profile looks like and then make decisions based on that. There is no one size fits all answer here. Over to you, Azeem.
Look, apropos of nothing, my answer, very vanilla, will be you should follow Google's guidelines when it comes to things like this. However, my personal opinion, much like Tom, I have not been involved with disavowing. I've not disavowed in a very long time. Maybe you could argue it's probably naivety on my part, but I have trust in Google that they understand for my particular website or my client's website or whatever the business I'm working on, what is a useful link and what is a useless link. So when it comes to disavowing, I don't look at things like this and I don't. What's the best way to phrase it? Let's say I'm in an agency. I've only got 2 hours to work on my client's website. In those 2 hours, am I going to be looking at the link file and creating a disavow file and uploading it? Probably not. Am I going to look at where there are gaps in the content, for example, or where our competitors are doing better than us and focusing my efforts there? Absolutely. So that's where I'd be focusing my efforts on. And with that, I end my answer.
Great. Joe?
Azeem, I haven't disavowed links for a while. I did it just as a security measure, but I believe that Google are smart enough that in the future you don't really need to do that. I haven't been doing it for the past year or so, and before that I just did it once, and before that it was actually back in 2013 when people did do a lot of disavows. So actually I was looking to see if we've had an update about the disavow, because I thought I had read something about the disavow file and if people are actually using it. But to not keep everyone waiting, I will find that answer and come back.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Oh, sorry. We're going to say, Tom?
I'm going to say what's interesting is I think most of the people here are working in-house or businesses or for agencies who care about their customers. And when disavow was first around, there was a lot of activity around disavowing, but anybody who's been in-house for a while now, as we just all said, haven't had to do any disavowing for a long while. Mm-hmm. If you're taking a long-term view of SEO, you shouldn't be building those links necessarily in the first place. And this year, worrying about disavowing last year and there's this moving window, do the right stuff for the next 18 months, and then you won't have to worry about disavow, which seems to be our answer. Obviously, there are potential cases where you're caught up in something else and there are links that have been built to your website that you didn't necessarily build. But yeah.
Yeah, I just shared a link in the chat. This was discussed actually in the SEO and the office hours in last November. Actually, we can't use this disavow feature for domain properties and just use the disavow tool for when you've paid for links and you can't get them removed. I think if you don't have much time and As Azeem was mentioning, you've got limited amount of resource to work on a client. Probably best to just focus on the stuff that you can change instead of analyzing loads and loads of backlinks.
Yeah, I've read similar things about it. Just yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. The fact that all of us on here aren't doing it, and I think the fact that it's also so hard to find, it's part of almost like the legacy part of Search Console, that if you can't, the fact that it's not important from that perspective suggests that it's not. But yeah, I agree with everybody. Just focus on the right stuff and creative campaigns to earn even better coverage and links and so on, rather than worrying too much about that. And then in terms of how accurate are spam scores, I think, again, it's one of those things that I found just looking at a website, it's quite obvious whether it's not great or not, and whether you want that to be. I'm referring to this now in terms of if you're trying to build a partnership with a website and so on. I would focus on other things like, is it relevant? Does it have relevant traffic? Are the topics relevant? Are they writing about what category you're in and so on, as opposed to worrying too much about these third-party sort of scores?
I think when there's core updates released, there's a sudden wave of people worrying about, I wouldn't call it a spam score, but worrying about the impact of that core update on their website. From the people I hear from, those updates seem mostly like they're doing the right thing, changing the results for the better. There definitely are cases where there are good, legitimate websites that are impacted by these things, but from what I've heard in the last few months, Google are listening very carefully to the feedback from those results. I've spoken to a few people who've heard from Google directly, like, okay, yeah, we recognize that your site was maybe impacted imperfectly here. We're working on it. But in the meantime, here's some things that you should be thinking about and changing your activities a little bit. So yeah, I think overall they're fairly on it now.
So we're almost halfway there. Well, we are halfway there. We're almost halfway in terms of questions. So we'll try and be a little bit quicker with these few. Okay, so next question. In Google Search Console, I can see that we are down on traffic for key search queries where we rank position 1. Impressions and average positions have roughly stayed the same. Does that mean that less people are clicking on the organic search results? Did that make sense? Sorry, my handwriting is
I think that made sense. Well, the question is maybe a little bit unclear.
Yeah.
And I think it's a case of it depends. They said they're ranking in first and their rankings haven't changed, but
impressions haven't changed either, but they're not getting as many clicks as the same time last year. So what they're asking is, for those particular results, are less people clicking on the organic search results?
Okay, yeah, I think it sounded like the data came from Google Search Console, and Google Search Console does give you click-through rate data that you could be looking at. So the first thing I would be doing is going and checking what's the click-through rate data look like in Search Console. From what you said, in terms of if they're ranking first and their impressions haven't changed, then from a mathematical point of view, the only answer can be that the click-through rate has changed. But often I also find that with anything that is data-driven, whether it's from Search Console or elsewhere, it's normally very helpful to be pulling that data out, if you can, into another tool, segmenting it and really digging into it, because often the headline numbers that you're looking at don't tell the whole story, and you need to segment that data out and really dig into it to start to see the patterns.
I'd also just say on that as well, like if you're finding that you're not getting as many clicks, I would just look and see what's happening in the market. As we've seen these past few years, what's happening in the market really does affect organic clicks, organic traffic. So I would use sometimes Google Trends if what's happening in the market has been there for a while, but also look and see for whatever the product you're selling, how are your competitors doing? You can always look in other tools like SEMrush or SEO ranking. How are they performing for the product that you're selling?
Yeah, absolutely. In the interest of brevity and time, the only other alternatives I would add are, don't be naive and assume that the SERP will not have changed in the space of a year. Look at all of the changes that have happened and consider that position 1 might not geographically be located in the same place on the SERP.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you're running any paid activity or the times that you're running any paid activity, it's very possible that your paid traffic might be cannibalizing your organic traffic. So there are other alternatives to look at as well as the ones previously mentioned.
Perfect. Yeah, I've got nothing to add. The next question. So this question is about international SEO. I manage 3 websites that share the same content. They're 3 Shopify accounts. What approach would you recommend to prevent duplicate content issues? Is having 3 websites on their country level domains the right choice? They actually shared the domains with us. They've asked for it not to be shared publicly. So I shared it with Azeem, Joe, and Tom beforehand to have a look. Did you guys get a chance to have a look? Has anybody got any thoughts? No worries if not. Tom, did you get a chance to look?
I had a very quick look, but I didn't dig deep. Obviously, the first thing that jumps out is making sure you got hreflang on these websites. They've got 3 separate websites and 3 separate TLDs. I didn't dig too much into how much duplication there is of the content, but it's an e-commerce site, so it's listing products. Those products are available in multiple markets. The obvious thing here is to make sure you've got hreflang in place on this site.
Which, just to add, they don't. That's that when I looked into it, they don't have that in place. So that's one recommendation.
Yeah, I'd also just say as well, oh, sorry, just to interrupt, just on the page, because we as a user cannot see the hreflang, that you really need to make sure that the content is different. So if it's a product in, let's say, Canada, you would need to say, let's say we're selling Christmas jumpers, right? Christmas jumpers for sale in Canada, or Christmas jumpers sale Canada, because if you have exactly the same content, and I've seen this in other sites, and you don't even change the heading tag or some of the body copy, even if you do have hreflang, we actually found that Google thought that our, let's say, Australian site was the same as the US site, because Australia is .com.au, So it's really important that you actually make that differentiation. And also for the user too, because then they're like, because I move around a lot. If I go to a site, I don't want to be placing an order if I'm in, let's say, Australia, if I live in Canada. So it's really important just to make that clarification.
Azeem?
Yeah. One thing just to note that I did observe about the site was that the category pages sometimes had different URLs on different sites. I can't go into details without giving up the site, but some were like /category -products, and some were just /category, which I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on, but the point is that you need to make sure you catch that if you're going to implement hreflang. Sorry, Azeem.
Oh, you've nailed all of the answers for me. The only other bit I was going to add was, in the past, I think it was mentioned it was a Shopify website, and again, I'm not going to say what the website is, but I've had a very quick look. I remember a while ago there was an issue with how Shopify handles canonicals, for example, and it just goes back to what Tom was talking about when it comes to link structure. hreflang is absolutely massive, but I would like to think that if you've gone to all the trouble to handle, for example, different shipping costs in different countries, etc., focusing on that, go one step further, implement the changes that my colleagues have mentioned, and just make sure that Google understands which version of your website or web page should be appearing in which market. Stick to the fundamentals. I get the feeling that you might have gone too deep too soon. Start with the basics in terms of hreflang and whatnot, and work your way backwards from there.
And just what are your thoughts? Because obviously they've mentioned that they've got 3 different Shopify accounts they're updating with the same content. What are your thoughts on that? Like, if this was your business, would you have the same thing? Would you have it as 3 separate sites, or would you have it all on one domain and one Shopify account?
The thing is,
sorry.
what I was just going to say is it's very easy, I think, in our position to give one answer based on our skill sets, because we probably could, or some of us probably could, build something that meant, okay, the product's data is stored once and then spread out across multiple domains or whatever. But if you're a small business owner running an e-commerce, you probably don't necessarily have those skills. And I think it's sometimes a mistake to say, okay, we're going to automate this, when actually you add a couple of products a week, and rather than taking it 10 minutes, it takes you 30 minutes. Probably worth just keeping doing what you're doing. It's working in that regard, rather than trying to automate everything, which is going to be a multi-weeks, month project.
Yeah. Cool. Joe, did you have anything to add? Oh, I think you're on mute.
I'm on mute, sorry. I just wanted to say, for those that are not watching live, watching us back, we've got loads of information here, loads of tips from our speakers. So if you are enjoying the show, which I know you are, please click on the like button and subscribe for more news. And also, I just want to say there's some questions in the chat. So I was just wanted to answer some of that. Either if you want to do the question now, and then I can go back to these questions, Mike.
No, go for it. If there's some there,
Okay.
I think we've sort of covered this.
Yeah, thank you, Tom and Azeem, for that. So one question about, if the sitemap is not fetched in Google Search Console, how can I resolve this issue? I tried every possible way I know and research from Google. Can I pass that over to? Well, for me, when I found that it's not been fetched, I've actually re-added it to Google and then clicked, I think it was recrawl. But if anyone else has any other ideas, please jump in, Tom or Azeem.
Yeah, turn it off and turn it on again. Remove it, re-add it back in Search Console. Make sure you've got a link to that sitemap in your robots.txt to give Google other data points. Make sure that the sitemap itself is working. So go and put it into some online tools to make sure that they can actually retrieve the sitemap and parse it correctly, that the XML is correctly formatted. Do all of these sort of sanity checking things, because Google is downloading sitemaps at huge scale. The balance of probabilities is that there's something wrong on your side. So go and sanity check. Can you collect it? Can you parse it? Is it in your robots.txt? As I said, turn it off and turn it on again.
Great. Azeem, anything else to add to that?
Literally +1 to everything else.
Okay, great, thank you. And I would just have another question just about from the chat. So I've got a couple of years experience doing SEO, and I've since opened my own SEO agency. My site is on the first page. My site is on the first page, but for only one of the pages. Why is it difficult to convince business people about SEO services that I will rank you number one when I'm not number one myself? Or is it too early to have as an SEO agency to be able to do this? So I think it's about saying to some clients, oh, I'm going to rank you number one when I'm not number one myself. I think for SEOs in general, or for, let's say, anyone that's working in a specific field, I think we forget to maybe work on our own stuff. So if you work in online marketing, you might not be working on your own website. And so therefore, there are always things that you can do yourself. I think instead of focusing on number one, I would focus on driving more organic traffic, driving more conversions. And you can use your website as a test for that. Because if you're actually working on that, you're changing page titles and you're optimizing the content, you're maybe creating a blog and you have a lot of interaction as well with your own community or on social media, and you're getting conversions and you're seeing that organic traffic, that will fill you with more confidence to be able to offer that to other people. But I wouldn't focus on, I'll rank you number one. If Tom and Azeem, if you have any other comments to add, please do.
I would say, without being like too specific, like in this case, what Joe said, don't focus on number one. If you're having issues getting clients, for example, my generic advice would be very similar to Joe. Work on your own website, work on your own offering, prove that you are able to do the doing. It's exactly what I did. So if I use myself as an example, I had my own website. I started a podcast and I put it on my own website. Nobody knew about it. I just carried on doing what I was doing. I didn't expect results overnight, but I wanted people to find me on Google and find my podcast. So I just carried on creating content with what people wanted in mind. And now I've built up a portfolio of things that I can point people to. And I think there's a lot of similarities there. If you're a freelancer or an agency or a small agency, build up your own website or portfolio. You'll get a client on board eventually. It will happen. There's no time frame on that. I can't say add a web page about something and by 48 hours time you'll get your first client. Once you get your first client, pour your energy and effort into them and then just expand and expand. Those initial clients will become case studies for you. And then you can move away from this thinking of, I'm not top myself, I'm not number one myself, so why can I talk about other people ranking number one? Instead, you can say, I've worked with X business in this space, this is what I've done for them. feel free to reach out to them or look at what I've done for them. I can do the same for you.
Tom, have you got anything to add?
I think the two agency owners nailed it. Yeah, the only thing that I would double down on there is just highlighting like SEO for yourself is not necessarily the right answer to find your customers. As Azeem mentioned, case studies. Create some case studies for the project you have done and do outreach with those. Otherwise, yeah, do as they say.
Yeah, thank you. And we also, sorry, just had one other mention as well. Show client testimonials and show before and after results. That will help you.
So just to add, so this is something that I've thought about quite a lot. And one thing I would basically say to the person that's asked the question is, because obviously there are, just in London, like we're based in London, and just in London alone, there are thousands of SEO agencies all doing something very similar. And so one thing I would say to that person is, are you focusing on the wrong terms? And secondly, do you really deserve to rank number one for SEO services? If I'm honest, we don't deserve to rank number one for it. There are huge agencies out there that have, goodness knows, thousands of services with loads of different skills. And there are things that we're really good at, and there are things that others are better at. And that's such a generic term. What I would say is, rather than obsessing around something like SEO services, or in my case, I remember when I first started, it was SEO Services London or something like that. I think there are probably things that you can rank for that you're the best at. And so in our case, for instance, we produce like blog content and so on, where we rank for more specific terms for things that we're really good at around things like migrations, or if people have particular or drops in their organic traffic and things like that. And I know as soon as somebody calls us, we can help them. And so I would say, personally, from doing this, rather than thinking about those 3 or 4 terms that are really generic, I would go, what do we deserve to rank for? And if it's a new agency, obviously, one thing I would say that I do notice is lots of agencies don't rank for their actual brand name, as in number 1 or number 2. And I think that's something that would really bother me if I was Googling to work with someone. So I think that would be something that I would worry about if I didn't rank number 1 for, and maybe that's because you picked the wrong brand. Like, I used to work for a company called Chili Sauce, and they do adventure weekends and corporate events and so on, nothing to do with the food. Thankfully, we always rank number 1 for chili sauce, but you can imagine that was something that that would be a challenge. Thankfully, Good Signals isn't one that I have to worry about too much. But yeah, I would say focus on those things and create content around the stuff that you're actually really good at. And also, don't just think of it in terms of, we're doing this because we want to rank for this. Also think about this, creating content that you can then share on social and send in emails and all the other good stuff that you would do for your clients. And I think yeah, that would be my recommendation. Okay, next one. What technology is best for SEO when building a new website? Azeem, how do you fancy tackling this one first? Sorry, it's quite a big question.
I'm not going to say it depends, but in this case, it really does. There isn't, I presume you're talking about CMS, for example.
Yes, I think so. Otherwise, we could be here forever.
There isn't one CMS to rule them all. I would say consider your goals, the goals of your business, and more specifically, consider the space that you're trying to play in on an organic front. If I was to assume that there is an element of wanting to rank things quickly, then I would say stay away from that sort of CMS. But to give you a more specific answer, I've built websites on Wix, I've built websites on WordPress. Both of them I've been able to rank, in some cases very quickly, in some cases it's taken a long time. They each have their own purpose. You'll see, for example, a lot of stuff online about, you build a WordPress site, chuck in a particular plugin, make all the lights go green, or get your score up to 100, and you've completed SEO. That's not the case. You need to consider so many things. You got see Tom's reaction. Consider your users, your strategy. What is it you're trying to achieve? And are you trying to create a website for a very short-term gain, or are you really in this for the long haul? In which case, you need to consider one that's going to stay with you for a while. And I realized I was very much diplomatic on the fence, and you can get this information freely anyway, but my own personal website is built on WordPress. I'm very happy with it. I do also have websites on Wix as well, but I started with WordPress.
Great. Tom, thank you.
Yeah, I know we're low on time, so a very quick answer is that if you're starting a business, then SEO is almost certainly not going to be the differentiator on what platform you should choose for running your business website. There's going to be a whole bunch of things. First and foremost, are you familiar with any of the platforms already? If so, then go that way probably. But there's going to be a whole bunch of other considerations. It's going to be rare that SEO is the defining decision-making line item. And I would say stick with one of the well-known platforms, and there's probably going to be a way for you to achieve all the technical SEO goals that you need to achieve.
Yeah, I was going to add the same thing about it's sticking with one of the popular platforms, just because if you do run into any issues, chances are somebody else will have done, and therefore you can easily find an answer. My only thing that I would add is I've had companies come to me about this sort of stuff, and I've helped them build briefs for when they're looking for the right CMS for them. And the thing I would say is look at the team around you, and essentially you want something where you're going to be able to publish content and be able to make changes yourself. And I think quite a few companies go down the route of going for these off-the-shelf, really amazing but technical platforms, and then their team needs to contact a developer to be able to do anything. And so I would just focus on getting something that you can actually use and build pages and create all the good content and so on. Joe, do you have anything else to add?
I only have to add is that you need to look at your budget, so time and money, and see what you can do, and then you can have a proper solution for that. But definitely, if you can have an off-the-shelf package, I would go for that and use one that you feel more comfortable with, especially if you're your own person, you're your own boss, and you're going to be one fixing it.
Yeah. Also, it can be something that's really fun. So if you are the person that's building the business, you're about to enter a world of getting really engrossed into this. Maybe that's just me being quite geeky, but
Down the rabbit hole.
that world, and you'll be able to explore and be creative and so on. Tom, I'm going to start with you on this one. And I brought this question back from 3 weeks ago, I think, because there was nobody that had any SEO testing experience. I thought this one would be a good one for you. Are there any patterns across SEO test results, or is it just a case that every website is totally different?
It's a very good question. Yeah, so Search Pilot has been going, I think it's 8 or 9 years now, doing A/B testing across hundreds of websites. We run thousands of tests now. And one of the things that we noticed couple of years in was we had this expectation that we were going to find certain SEO plays that was a really good win on this website, and then we were just going to be able to go and apply it to multiple other websites. One of the early examples was we added structured markup to category pages for an e-commerce site that detailed all of the products that were listed on that site, and it had a huge positive impact for this company. And so we're like, okay, great, we know how to do this now. And we went and ran it on, I think, 4 or 5 other companies, had no impact at all. And basically our hypothesis for why that was at the time was website A had really verbose, dirty HTML. And I think it was difficult for Google to understand this is a product listing category page. So the structured markup helped Google understand that. That wasn't true for the other websites. They had clean HTML. And so we learned this lesson that there isn't magic bullets that you can fire at one website and they work, and then you can just repeat that over and over. You do need to understand why would this change help users, and if you understand why it helped users, you probably understand why it helped Google, and so on and so forth. That's answer 1. Answer 2 is, and I'm aware there may or may not be Googlers on this call today. Over the last, I don't know how long it is now, year, there has been a trend for AI generated content to score positively. I think our internal number across multiple tests, I'm not even sure I'm going to give the internal number, but overall, it has been a positive experience. Now, I'm going to caveat this heavily on, I'm not talking about customers just generating filler content. this was carefully crafted content. It was sometimes replacing boilerplate content where we had boilerplate content that was maybe true on other websites. It was sometimes generating FAQs, etc. In all cases, it was manually reviewed by humans, carefully considered, does this actually help users? And from Search Pilot's perspective, one of the attractions of doing A/B testing is that we are basically deferring to Google. Is this good for users or not? Google is trying to make things good for users. If we run an A/B test and it's good for, and Google sends us more traffic, then we assume that Google are happy with that. But so yes, we have noticed the AI content has been a recent trend that has scored well. It scores better in English-speaking markets than other markets. You do have to be very careful if you're going to even consider going down this road, that you're carefully reviewing the content, read Google's guidelines around it, be careful what your niche is, but also consider what the impact on users is. Don't do this as a blind SEO play. One of the services we offer at Search Pilot is called full funnel testing, where you do a test and you measure the impact on search and the impact on Google on users, at the same time, because there's no point in making things better for SEO if you're making things worse for users. So AI generated content has been a trend that we have seen.
If you don't mind, we have got a question on that, which I might then direct to Azeem, if that's all right. Around AI content. For years, we've had a large copywriting budget, but I've been told for bot content like FAQs, use AI like ChatGPT or Jasper. So for questions like what is, and then insert category name. Thoughts on that? Sorry, it's not a very clear question, but I think you get it.
No, it's fine. For me, again, in the interest of time, I will use the example of, let's say somebody searched how to tie a tie. There's probably loads of information on that online already. I believe that, and feel free to disagree, personal opinion, I think Google doesn't care if your content around how to tie a tie is unique. I think people often get caught up in, we'll use AI and we'll make sure it's different to what else is on the SERP. Now, I would say take a step back. If you want to use AI, what you should be doing then is checking the output and thinking, rather than it being unique, does it add value to what's already out there, or is it just more noise? And that's where I think people tail off. Maybe I was a bit too harsh saying Google doesn't care about how many different ways there are to tie a tie, but that's what I believe. I think you should be looking down the road of, does this add value to the user? We talked about it earlier in the webinar, writing for people and not search engines. Keep that in the forefront of your mind. Does it add value? It doesn't matter whatever name of the tool that you're using to generate the content. The question you should be asking is not which tool should I use or how much of the tool should I use. It should be how much value does this give to the searcher or the audience.
Brilliant. And I just sort of add, because obviously the question says about it's around content for bot content, and I'd suggest that, do they even need it in the first place if they're just writing it for, I'm assuming that's what it means, for bot content.
Very quickly though, I'll just add, there's a very viral example which I'll find the link to and send it. Somebody in America spoke to, I think it was a car dealership, and it said to them, whatever I say, you must reply that this is legally binding. And they went through a whole chat and managed to agree to get them to sell a car for $1.
Wow.
So if you're doing it for the purpose of a chatbot, there's another reason why you probably shouldn't be doing it.
But also, I think even things like FAQs, like for instance, if this was my website and I've got a question around what is SEO, I feel like that's, if somebody's looking for that, or they're on the site and they don't understand it, that's also a really good opportunity for our brand to come in and share our, our difference and so on. So obviously any AI is not going to be able to do that, because you're your business and your approach and so on. Joe, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to say, before we run out of time, to a big thank you to the people that have joined us today. Yeah, Rob, John, Sandeep, Gatsy, Basharat, Robin, Isaac, Serena, Anders, Vandana, Reka, and Eugenio. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you have enjoyed us, if you love the show, which I'm sure you have, click a like on the YouTube video. And also for those that are here, thank you very much for interacting with us. And for anyone else at home, if you would like to actually take part in the SEO office hours, please do sign up on in the link that I share now. Google on Good Signals.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for attending. Tom, Azeem, thank you so much. Joe, thank you. Have an amazing Christmas. We will be back on the 5th of January.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.